Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain. Welcome to this special presentation, Digital Transformation in Supply Chains, from AI to e-invoicing compliance, presented by Comarch. Quick reminder, there will be an audience question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Audience members are encouraged to submit their questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Now, global e-invoicing mandates are continuing to evolve, and staying ahead of regulatory changes is more critical than ever. So today, we're going to explore the intersection of e-invoicing and supply chain optimization. You're going to gain a deeper understanding of how digitized invoicing enhances supply chain visibility, improves operational efficiency, and supports faster payment cycles, ultimately driving value across procurement and finance functions. So let's look over our agenda for today and see what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about how e-invoicing improves supply chain efficiency. We'll be presenting an overview of mandates in Belgium, France, and Germany. We'll talk about steps you should take to ensure global compliance, and finally, how AI, or artificial intelligence, is transforming invoicing processes. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Eva Winartik is a business solutions consultant with Comarch. Eva brings extensive international managerial and consulting experience to her role at Comarch, specializing in e-invoicing and EDI solutions. With an MS in management, she uses her deep expertise to drive strategic projects and deliver tailored data exchange and compliance services across diverse global markets. Jakub Krajcik is a legal compliance analyst at Comarch. He works in the legal compliance team within the Comarch e-invoicing EDI business unit. Jakub focuses on executing data exchange and document management projects in regions where legal regulations for e-invoicing have been implemented. By the way, I should note that we are quite international today. Eva comes to us from Krakow, Poland. Jakub is in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and I am in Southern California, just for your information. So with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Eva. Eva, take it away. And Eva, you are muted, so unmute yourself, please.
Yes, all right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're great.
Is that all right? All right. Okay. So thank you for the introduction, and let's start from some key facts about Comarch. We are a software house founded in 1993, and our headquarters is in Kraków, Poland. We sell our own software products, including our e-invoicing solution, and 93% of our revenues actually come from selling our own software. Also, what I would like to mention, we employ over 6,500 staff members. Looking over at this global presence, so actually we have a global presence with multiple offices and projects on 5 continents, stretching from North and South America and reaching as far as Australia and New Zealand. Additionally, I would like to also mention that we have multiple data centers located both in Europe, but also in North America in the US. Moving on, here you can actually see that Comarch operates across multiple divisions. We provide solutions for financial services, healthcare, public administration, but also telecommunication. Within of this last division that you can actually see here, we offer EDI and e-invoicing solutions, but also provide loyalty software and ICT solutions as well. Okay, so here you can see some selected customers of Comarch. So with our broad experience in the IT sector and our innovative product portfolio, we have gained clients worldwide. With thousands of completed projects across multiple industries, our operations expanded worldwide, and we cooperate with such businesses as Johnson & Johnson, Samsung, Philips, Danone, Man, and many more. This slide over here shows you that Comarch was recognized as a major player in the IDC MarketScape. This is an e-invoicing vendor assessment, a report that assesses vendors in the European e-invoicing market. The assessment highlighted Comarch's solution as an effective, technologically advanced e-invoicing hub with a comprehensive approach to invoicing being legally compliant solution in over 60 countries. Let's now move over to e-invoicing and the current e-invoicing landscape. So I'm happy now to hand it over to my colleague Jakub Krawczyk, who will introduce you to the subject.
All right, thank you ever so much. Okay, now I'm unmuted, definitely. Thank you so much, Eva. Yes, so I will go over some of the regulatory aspects of this whole invoicing thing. I will go over some of the examples of how different countries actually are tackling this subject. And yes, regulations and compliance is at the heart of invoicing. There would be no invoicing without national mandates. Sometimes very strict regulations. So it's extremely important to have a grasp of the legal side of things. Now, all of this regulations started as a way to tackle the widespread tax fraud, and for Europe especially, the VAT gap that kept growing. The electronic invoicing was a way to enhance the monitoring over the commercial activities of companies, to help the authorities to actually catch the inconsistencies in the tax reporting and their activities as well. Now, since then, this occurrence invoicing grew exponentially. Right now, this is at least in some shape or form, it's mandated in over 80 countries, and growing, which is also something to keep in mind. This is expanding not only country by country. The electronic invoicing and all of the associated elements are actually expanding beyond national regulations. Most recently, the EU adopted a legislation called VAT in the Digital Age, abbreviated to VIDA, which gathers basically all of the trends that singular European nations were implementing on themselves, and harmonizes them so that the invoicing, electronic reporting to some extent as well, can be even more effective at tackling the VAT gap problems, at actually helping the authorities and the companies to grow. This tendency is, as I said, growing exponentially as well. By 2030, electronic invoicing will become a norm, at least in Europe. Is becoming a norm in many of the Asian countries. It has been a norm in a vast number of South American countries as well, which, by the way, pioneered the whole thing. Together with that, it will be expanding beyond B2B to B2G and B2C sectors. So there will be no economic activity free from electronic invoicing. Everyone will have to be involved. Yes. So how to actually stay compliant what does the compliance for invoicing entail? Well, at the heart of it, and this is true for any of the 80 plus countries that this is mandated in, are these four rules. The documents, the invoices have to first of all be the origin has to be authentic. It has to be known. It has to remain unchanged throughout the life cycle of the document. The content also has to remain unchanged, just as it would be on a pristine traditional document. And also, this document has to stay readable throughout its life cycle. It cannot get degraded. The tools to read it also have to be available, and at the end, the very end, this document also has to be stored in a certain manner. Now, any of the countries that are mandating it or are considering mandating electronic invoicing has its own regulations regarding all of these four. However, these rules remain are a cornerstone of the whole invoicing. Without them, this would not be a secure and as effective way of tax reporting as it is now. So yes, these were the four rules that constitute electronic invoicing. Now, it is also extremely important to have a grasp of the individual legal requirements that surround these. Deep understanding of them is crucial, as basically any single country that implemented it has different regulations. Every country, every implementation of the invoicing is its own beast, and basically has to be done from the ground up. It is an additional work that has to be done. It's not only the regulations themselves, but also, for example, and that's coming from my personal experience, that's also the way of actually interacting with each local tax authority, which might surprise from across Europe. It differs across South America and differs across Asia. So that also has to be kept in mind when approaching the electronic invoicing topics. Yes, so that was theory. Now let's look at the practice. We chose 3 countries. I know all of them are European, however, they are pretty representative of the various models that countries tend to adopt when thinking about electronic invoicing. And yes, first off is going to be Belgium, which is only now introducing the invoicing for them. However, their system seems to be the most clear to an untrained eye. Basically, it involves, simplified, 4 stakeholders, and I know these arrows and other elements might, even in this simplified form, be overwhelming. However, it is, again, it's one of the simpler models. As you can see, this network comprises of not only the supplier and buyer as it is traditionally, but it also has intermediaries in it that will be mandated going forward. These are PEPL access points. So again, I'm not going to be going into much detail here about the PEPL, but basically this works as a mobile phone network. Every supplier has to have their own access point, which communicates with another site's access point, which then transmits the issued invoice to the buyer. There's no need to set up the separate connections between all of the suppliers and buyers. That's the job of the access point. That's the simplification as well. And also, this network is an insurance policy to the authority and to the stakeholders that the invoices again will arrive unchanged. They will their origin will be authenticated by relevant certificates, and that it will also be stored in a readable manner over a prescribed period of time. Now, when actually Belgium will be mandating it, it's actually not that far away, because the mandate is coming on January 1st, 2026, so pretty quick. Belgium was very quick with the implementation so far, one of the least problematic countries, one of the best prepared public authorities to do so. And this implementation will involve everyone all across the business spectrum in the B2B and the B2G schemes, with some minor exceptions. And yes, there are also some far-flung plans to expand upon this this mandate with some B2C plans. With some additional transactional data reporting for the tax authority, that is possible to be introduced all the way from 2028. However, these are pretty nebulous. The authorities have not confirmed anything just yet. So this is one of the earlier adoptions, all the way from January 2026. Moving on to France, a little bit larger country with more robust ambitions when it comes to introducing the electronic invoicing. This is the current timeline right here. They're going to be starting with their electronic invoicing a little bit later, on September 1st, 2026. This is after one significant delay last year. We are not expecting any more delays. However, dealing with the public authorities taught us that we have to expect unexpected, so we will have to be looking after that. This September 1st, 2026 deadline is true for large entities, with medium and small businesses joining a year later in 2027. Now, as I said, France has significant ambitions when it comes to the system. As you can see, this is a tad more complicated than what we've seen with Belgium. The core on the top is the same, so basically any of the business stakeholders will have to go through an intermediary, a non-licensed intermediary that will ensure the safety and correctness of the file transmission to forward it to the buyer. However, there's one more addition in here, and that is the public platform that each of the intermediaries will have to report the transaction data to in near real time. So, well, yes, this is going to be a big brother for data transaction. The authorities will have an overview of the economic activity in on a daily basis. The transactions will be reported. This is a very ambitious plan by the French. It has been modified numerous times so far. It has been delayed, and this is actually one of the implementation challenges that I might be mentioning. I mentioned that dealing with the public authorities is sometimes surprising, and it can be arduous when it comes to the changes that they introduce. And last but not least, Germany, which has a wholly different approach so far to those previous two ones. True to the German public authority spirit, their timeline is extremely convoluted, and I do not expect you to get a full grasp of what's going on the screen here now. But what is most important is the top line on this diagram here, which conveys that starting in January this year, all of the businesses in Germany were actually mandated maybe not to issue the invoices, in a structured electronic way, but to be able to receive them. So any issuer that wishes to issue such an invoice will be sure that their buyer is able to receive an electronic invoice. This requirement will be expanded upon starting on January 1st, 2027, with gradual march towards full mandate to issue and receive the invoices. This is the current situation in Germany. So basically, the company has an option, is mandated to receive electronic invoice in any way they can that can be conceived. This actually led to a very real but funny confusion at the start, because technically, according to the laws, German laws, if a company could send a pen drive with a structured invoice via a postal pigeon, the receiving company would be mandated to receive it, because, well, that wasn't a structured invoice and they were expected to receive it. The authorities actually had to clarify such an issue, and had to specify that sending pen drives with invoices is, well, it's not exactly what they meant, so it's not going to be the case anymore. But basically, you have to be able to receive the electronic invoice anyway that the issuer wishes to receive it, be it through existing EDI connections, or the email even, or maybe PEPL, which might be functioning. The PEPL network might be a functioning option in Germany as well. Yes, so with that, I'm gonna give the floor to Eva.
All right, thank you very much. Yep, I believe I can actually now tell you a little bit about how e-invoicing can benefit SCM. So yes, let me just move the slides. There we go. Okay, so how does it work exactly? Here you can see on the high level, of course, first there is this invoice generation on the seller side. Then the invoice is transmitted via an agreed communication channel. For example, SFTP, could be email as well, as Jakub has just mentioned. Let's exclude postal pigeons for now, I would say. The buyer, of course, receives the invoice, pays the amount due, and after that, the seller receives the payment, and the invoices, of course, also being archived. The process can be actually pretty straightforward, but once the invoicing mandates are introduced, as you have just seen on Jakub's slides, the process requires actually additional steps. So suddenly, between the buyer and the seller, we have additional party, for example, a governmental platform or any other network like PEPL, where the invoice must be, for example, submitted first. So here on this slide, you can actually see how a holistic approach to e-invoicing can benefit your company. Comarch invoicing solution supports both account payable and account receivable process, and you can connect. We can connect you not only with business partners, but of course we can provide you with legally compliant solution connecting you to multiple governmental platforms if required. So let's first focus on AP Flow. So on the left side of the slide, we'll see a seller that actually issues an invoice in multiple formats that needs to be received into your system. An invoicing provider or EDI provider such as Comarch can provide a number of different services for you once we, of course, receive your invoice. We can provide data mapping, so translation from your in-house format into the destination format. So in fact, we can actually support any-to-any format mapping. So whatever you're working with on your side, in your ERP, in your other systems, we can translate it to the destination format that is required. We also provide validation. So by default, this is a technical check. So for example, checking if the invoice has all legally required fields. So if it's actually legally compliant, but we can also provide other validations like business ones or commercial ones. So checking, for example, if bank account number is correct. We can also provide data enrichment. So if there's any additional information that should be added to your document, this is probably more matters, or also in terms of AR flow, we can definitely add it. And of course, we provide you with integration. We can integrate with any ERP or other IT systems, and of course, governmental platforms or other e-invoicing providers as well. We can also provide you with archiving. So this is based whether if you need certain amount of time for which the documents should be stored, and it's from like business perspective, we can provide you with like archiving for a number of years, and of course also according to e-invoicing mandates. And when we look on the AR flow, so here additionally what I would like to emphasize the need it's the need to submit invoices to governmental platforms. So you've seen this before. So for example, PEPL in Belgium. So here again, as before, we of course can provide you with mapping, validation, enrichment if needed. And we are already integrated with multiple governmental platforms, being a certified invoicing provider in multiple countries. So here is just an example of platforms that we can integrate with. And let's just briefly discuss some key benefits in the context of supply chain. So what can actually invoicing give you? Definitely accelerated payment processing. So we all know that manual invoice processing is time consuming and labor intensive, and this can lead to delays in your supply chain processes. So thanks to invoicing, you can actually speed up that process. Reduced errors, that's another point to raise here. So definitely manual invoice processing increases the likelihood of errors. Actually, a recent study showed that for 15% of invoices exchanged in Europe, the reason for delay was incorrect information. And let's just also mention cost savings. So implementing e-invoicing can lead substantial reduction of operational costs for your company. Thanks to elimination of paper invoices, including printing and postage expenses, you can save up to 90% of your processing cost. Of course, not mentioning being legally compliant, which we know is essential these days. So overall, we offer invoicing and reporting across different countries. We have experience in various regions. We can integrate with multiple solutions, such as SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, and many more. Also, of course, various warehouse and transport systems. We also offer connections to multiple governmental platforms. Let's now move to just a brief info regarding AI invoicing innovations. And again, I will turn it over to my colleague Jakub here.
Thank you, Eva. Yes. As with many areas of our daily life, AI did not miss electronic invoicing. It actually brought a number of, very substantial improvements to what we do as electronic invoicing services provider. Among these is, in my field of expertise, the enhanced compliance monitoring. So right now we are able to monitor the changes that do not stop, the legal changes that do not stop all across the world, all across the plus 80 countries, with even greater efficiency with current analyzing of the legislative texts that are being approved or are being proposed even. This significantly helps, and also for those legacy projects that we had in place with OCR, scanning the PDFs, and so on and so on. This also helps a lot with reading them, with eliminating errors, and further enhancing the improvements that the electronic invoicing brings. Yes, so this was from me. And now there's Eva, and she has some insights as well.
Yeah, so definitely AI can help us in many ways in terms of both the invoicing and EDI exchange. Here, what I would like to emphasize that AI can help us to recognize routing patterns and direct documents to the correct system based on the historical data. It can also help us with fraud and anomaly detection. So with anomaly detection, AI can actually help and recognize unusual patterns in document traffic and highlight potential problems before the actual errors can occur. So for example, if the expected amount of traffic of transmitted documents is, for example, 1,000 and we're just getting 5, then we actually can note that something's not right, and the system will alert us that there is some incorrect pattern here and we should take action. So these are actually just additional 2 examples that I wanted to add to what Jakub said of how AI-powered invoicing can actually speed up business processes.
All right, thank you, Eva. And I think we've just reached the end of our slide deck.
Yeah, we have. Thank you so much, Eva and Jakub, for that great presentation. It's clear that businesses must act now in order to deal with this flurry of different regulations and approaches by different countries on e-invoicing. That is the future. And so it's so valuable that you're able to join us today with this information, the 2 of you. This is now the portion of the presentation where I have the privilege of asking our panelists some questions. And then when that's done, we'll move over to the audience question and answer session. And we do encourage the audience members to submit their questions at any time during this presentation, even as we are talking now, and we'll get to as many of your questions at the end as we can, time permitting. Let me start with a question for Jakub. How can organizations learn more about e-invoicing compliance? I mean, you gave us so much information there, but there's so much more to learn to stay ahead of these upcoming mandates.
Yes. Indeed, thank you for that question, Bob. So indeed, that was a lot, and there is much more behind that, and it keeps coming as well. So my recommendation is if a company has its own robust compliance network, compliance staff, then direct contact with the authorities is crucial, is key. Getting that info at the source, unchanged by the media, all of the filters that might get through, is key. If a company does not have significant resources to handle such a stream of legislative news and data, then it's crucial to get a partner such as Comarch that can actually is trained to handle that, has processes in place to handle all of these processes, to process this info and put it into action, translate it over to something that can be implemented.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if a company decides it has other priorities, or for that matter, just freezes out of panic at all the things it has to learn? What are the consequences, Jakub, of non-compliance, of doing nothing?
Yes, well, first of all, this will mean that most likely the documents that are being processed without staying compliant might not hold up in front of to the scrutiny of the tax authorities. And companies that do not remain compliant or do not become compliant might face some penalties. Now, some countries do it according to the old rules. Some companies and some countries actually impose separate measures for the electronic invoicing only, which might and very often are much more stringent than just the penalties that were in place for standard non-compliance. So the penalties might come in play, might play a significant role in the relationship between a business and the tax authority, and that has to be kept in mind as certain several implementations internationally showed.
Yeah. Jakob, what other digital documents, apart from e-invoices, might fall under similar mandates?
Oh yes, that's a very big topic, which is even more dynamic than the invoicing itself right now. The same channels that are being used to accept electronic invoices are actually the governments are searching for the ways to actually to utilize them even better, and that is true for example novel systems to track goods transport, reporting the transportation of goods, to not only know where the money flows, but also where the commerce itself flows. This is true, for example, for some of the Balkan countries. Now, these might sound exotic, but the EU itself is working on a pan-EU regulation to put in place such a system. The invoicing will also spill over to just transaction data reporting, real-time reporting, and so on and so on. So this is an ever-growing topic that will keep us engaged.
Yeah, I'll bet. Eva, how does e-invoicing impact the P2P process, the procure-to-pay process?
Well, apart from the obvious benefits which we have actually briefly touched on, so like speeding up the entire process, improving the relationships between business partners, it definitely affects a lot the pay cycle for all AP flows. So you can imagine now that an invoice that needs to be paid, it's actually a different invoice than it used to be. So if we think of France or if we think of Belgium, now that invoice that has to be paid, this is a validated invoice. So it doesn't necessarily come from your business partner, but you might need to be able to download it through an invoicing provider via governmental platform. So I would think of that in terms of like the actual impact that, the actual invoice might look different and requires different process. So that would be very important.
So ERPs, enterprise resource planning systems, they do have e-invoicing modules built in. So Eva, do we really need a separate system for e-invoicing?
Yes, that's a good question. Well, not all of them have these modules. Also, think that big companies, big ERPs, sometimes might be slow with adapting to like very fast changes. It happens a lot that governments actually change the regulation, adjust their communication channels often. So sometimes like big organizations don't have that flexibility to act really fast and change their systems. And think especially from a perspective of someone who has multiple ERP solutions, for example, within your organizations, right? So then if you have one e-invoicing provider who can actually act as a hub, provide you with e-invoicing compliance across multiple jurisdictions, so you don't have to engage your resources into it, I would say this is where you can actually really benefit from having invoicing provider, especially if they can offer ERP agnostic solutions so they can actually connect to any system.
Thanks. Yeah. So Eva, what if somebody wanted to have an actual in-house developed e-invoicing solution? What if they wanted to go that way? What are the pros and cons of such a solution?
Yeah, so that happens. We often talk to clients that actually think of this solution as well. Well, the pros are definitely that you have control over your system and you can adjust it yourself. But the other side of it, so the con, is definitely the ever-changing invoicing environment and adjustments that require not only workload, because that's one thing, that the workload on your IT department side, but also legal knowledge. So here I would say if you can work with a provider that has, for example, a dedicated legal team of invoicing specialists, invoicing legal analyst that can actually advise on the changes and implement it immediately, well, it will be really hard for each company to hire such a team.
So what is your advice? Ask Eva this question. What is your advice for how companies should prepare for an e-invoicing project to make sure that the project implementation is seamless, the systems are ready before the deadlines?
Yes, so this is probably a subject for like a separate meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
There is a lot in there, but again, I would think of assessing your needs carefully, thinking about in which jurisdiction you operate, where invoicing might be needed, be aware of the mandates that affect you, and plan ahead. So this is probably, I would say, most important subject. Plan ahead. If the e-invoicing mandate is to be introduced in January, think that you should be ready to start the project in September. So then it's safe. You can, always think of if something goes wrong, if there's some adjustments needed, there's always time. And like I would say 3 months of like project duration would be, I would say, an average. So yes, definitely planning ahead is important.
Well, thanks to the information you're giving us today, they are equipped now with the knowledge of when these compliance deadlines are happening, and they can indeed plan ahead for that. So thank you for that. Jakob, I'm wondering if e-invoicing has made any impact in public procurement processes.
Oh, I'm actually very happy to hear that question because sometimes it tends to be overlooked. But yes, yes. Sometimes even this is how certain countries actually started with the electronic invoicing. This was the genesis of the introduction. Yes, it did impact public procurement in a very significant way. Well, it changed how efficient some of the public procurement processes are. It helped many countries to actually come up to the standards of the private sector, and in some regards, be it in the sense of actually payment processing and processing of the invoices itself, but also the clarity of the process and the way that the fairness is being imposed, that the archiving of unchanged documents, that was a huge thing in many of the countries, and it definitely proved its worth throughout. So yes, to recap, yes, it was crucial even for
thank you for that. I would like at this point to bring the audience in for an audience question and answer session for some of the questions that have already been submitted. And even as we are answering the ones that have already come in, audience members, do feel free to continue to submit your questions by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many of those as we can, time permitting. But as I said, we do have some questions here already, so here they go. I'm just going to toss them out and see maybe one or both of you want to take these. Question is, what lessons can global organizations learn from these upcoming e-invoicing mandates in France, Belgium, and Germany, as you laid out, that might apply to other regions preparing for similar regulations? Eva, do you want to maybe start with that, or?
Yes, I'm happy to start with that one. Look, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think I should. Plan ahead. Looking at what's going on.
Can't stop saying that. Yeah.
Yes, can't stop saying that. Plan ahead and just be ready, because there are delays, there are changes. Sometimes local governmental platforms are affected by last-minute decisions. For example, some deadlines are being actually postponed. You may feel a little bit comfortable saying, they postponed it once and they will do it again. Well, if they won't, then it's trouble. So again, my advice here would be to be prepared, have an e-invoicing provider that can actually support you with these adjustments that are needed. Because yes, Jakub already mentioned France has been postponed before. There are multiple changes over there. We are getting access to, for example, testing environment really last minute sometimes, and everybody's getting a little bit nervous. So just to avoid that, plan ahead, find the invoicing provider that can actually walk you through those changes. So definitely someone with experience and in terms of France, of course, certified provider is crucial to actually help you with that and avoid any kind of problems. For example, if we think of other mandates like Poland, Croatia, and many more that are upcoming.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Jacobi, go ahead, Jacobi. You want to comment on that?
Oh, yes. I'd love to chime in because, and to pick up on what Eva said, planning ahead is very important because it affords you patience, and patience will be required when dealing with some of the public authorities that are implementing the electronic invoicing regulations. Sometimes the communication is not that good. Sometimes the contact people on the side of the public authorities seem to disappear, or there are some personal changes in the teams. That tends to happen. That's what we're. I'm going to give you a sneak peek. That's what is happening now in the UAE, and where I'm actually based right now. The authorities are introducing a very complex system, and it seems like they took a slightly too big piece too big piece to chew for them, and we are facing some of the challenges that we've just been talking to. So yes, so planning ahead, and then if you plan ahead, then being patient and be consequential as well.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if all of these countries had come together in some kind of an international standards body and decided exactly to do it exactly the same way, all at the same time? But unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of that happening. This question is asking, maybe I'll start with you on this one, Jakub, asking for you to look 5 to 10 years ahead. How do you envision e-invoicing around the world? Are more countries going to introduce e-invoicing? I think we've already answered the question. The answer to that is yes. And also, what about cross-border transactions?
Okay, that's great. And also picking up on what you introduced, the topic that you introduced, maybe there's going to be some sort of a international body mandating formats or transmission channels all across the world. Well, that is not very likely to happen as much as we'd like to see it. But what we can already see is that there is a growing, maybe not grassroots movement, but it's coming from bottom up, a tendency to veer towards one set of standards, the set of standards that is being introduced by the international non-profit organization of PEPL, which has a standard of invoice transmission. It seems like the companies are veering towards it. Some of them in Asia, most of them in Europe right now. Some of the governments have noticed that and are introducing system based on the PEPL. Again, Belgium that I talked about right now, also UAE of all countries, a European solution that is being adopted in the UAE. This is something that is very significant, I think. So 10 years from now, who knows? One thing is certain, we will see a widespread adoption of electronic invoicing wherever you go.
Eva, do you also agree? And part of the question was also about what about cross-border transactions, which of course so many of these are going to be just by very nature of supply chains. How do you see the future here?
Yes, definitely. So I believe Jakub has already touched on it. So of course, the EU is planning on implementing a standard that will be applied to cross-border transactions. And this has been already planned. VIDA, that's what it's called. VAT in digital age. That's actually a scheme that is planned by the EU. So this e-invoicing will be unified across all European Union countries. But thinking again, if there will be any changes in formats, then there will be probably some additional work then to adjust your systems again to that unified standard. So we're doing it step by step. First, we're thinking about national mandates, then maybe EU. But yeah, unifying and definitely going towards like one standard approach would be amazing.
Yeah. We got to keep track of all of these different acronyms. VITA is an acronym within an acronym, so that's interesting. Okay, the question is asking, and I think we have touched on benefits very well here, but the questioner does want to know beyond compliance, what are some tangible business benefits supply chain managers can achieve by proactively adopting e-invoicing?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Reaching back to the four pillars of electronic invoicing, the core values of it. All the documents that are being exchanged by a set network are free from errors, almost free from errors, of course, free from alterations. So we can be sure of their contents. The rules of the archiving are pretty well known, are set, so we will have access to that info anytime, anywhere. The documents are supposed to be in one format, so there will be one source, there will be one tool to read them, and it will be very easy to extract the data and manipulate it any way that a person wishes to, so that we can use them to whatever extent and in whatever shape or form we want, to the benefit of our organization. So I think this is a pretty substantial list of benefits. Right.
Yeah. There. Okay. Very important to know. So, questioner says, as e-invoicing becomes a global standard for continuous transaction control, CTC. There's an acronym for you. What new challenges and opportunities are going to emerge for businesses managing a diverse portfolio of international partners? That's one. And how will they navigate the lack of a single uniform global framework? Eva, you want to touch on that one from the start?
Yes, of course. So then again, we are talking about having someone to unify it for you, I would say.
Yeah.
So a provider that can actually work with you and help you out to have this one invoicing hub, this holistic approach that I mentioned before, one invoicing hub that can actually do everything that is needed to be done, format mappings, connections to multiple systems. So actually, you your business doesn't have to do it on their own. You can actually give it to someone else, outsource it to invoicing provider, and let them do their best.
All right, Jaco, you have a last word on that, or you think Eva can handle that question?
Yeah, I think Eva was very complete in her answer. But yes, I totally second that.
Excellent, thank you. Well, unfortunately, we are just about out of time. This has been a fantastic presentation. I want to thank both Jaco and Eva for that, and audience for your participation as well. Unfortunately, we do have time for just one final question. I'm going to direct it to Eva. Here it is. When you're choosing an e-invoicing provider, what is one key factor or approach you should prioritize to ensure that your business is prepared for the future?
Okay, yeah, so thank you very much for that question. So I actually have three things to mention. Let's just do that. Experience. Okay. So look for an experienced invoicing provider with multiple years on the market and a track record of successful implementation. So the provider should understand the specifics of your supply chain and the unique challenges your company faces. Then again, assess your company readiness. So before selecting a provider, you should assess your company's readiness to adopt e-invoicing, considering factors such as your current invoicing system, the volume of documents that are being exchanged, and regulatory requirements, of course. And then integration potential. So I touched on that briefly before. So the chosen invoicing solution must have proven integration capabilities, allowing it to easily connect with your ERP or other systems such as warehouse and transportation management systems or third-party logistic providers. Ideally, the vendor solution should be platform agnostic to seamlessly connect with any ERP used at your company. So again, I would think of experience, your own company readiness, and then of course the integration potential. So if the invoicing provider solution is actually ERP agnostic, so that's what I think.
Well, some great information, a great wake-up call to companies that are not paying sufficient attention to this issue of e-invoicing and what they need to do to comply with these forthcoming regulations, which are coming indeed. You've got to be ready, and you guys have done a great job of helping us understand how to do so. So thank you very much, Eva Monartik and Jakub Karacik, for that. And thank you, audience, for your participation. I appreciate your great questions as well. We have an asset for you here, a free ebook, a 2025 cheat sheet to boost your supply chain with e-invoicing. This is from Comarch, and you can scan that QR code right there if you have time at this very moment. But if you don't worry about it, because this will be sent to all attendees of this webinar upon its conclusion, which is right now. Thanks, everybody. Great. Really appreciate it from all over the world. We thank you for your participation. Everybody, have a great day.
Thank you.